In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to do a long tail alternating cast on. It gives a similar edge to a tubular cast on, but I don't do the slipped rows. It matches the Kitchener or sewn bind off that I've used here at the top, and we've got the same nice stretchy edge at the bottom. You can see we can get it to focus, that it wraps right around the edge, gives a very neat appearance, and is very nice and stretchy. A lot of give to that. To begin the cast on, I've drawn out a tail about 4 times the length of the project that I want to cast on. To begin with a knit stitch, my yarn goes over my finger, tail yarn over my finger, working yarn over my thumb, and then tension them like you would any long tail cast on with your other fingers. Needle goes over the top, twist around to the front, and back up into position, and that anchors our first knit stitch. Now we begin our cast on motion. For a purl, needle goes behind, under both yarns, up and over the front, down in between, and under the back. And there we've got a purl cast on. You can see that that lays across there. Looks much like a purl bump. For a knit stitch, under the front, up in between, over the back, and around to the front again. Again for a purl, around, under both, up and over the top, down in between, around to the back. And again for a knit, to the front, up in between, over the back, and around to the front. Again for a purl, up and over the front, around to the back. For a knit, and there you can see that we are starting to get purl bumps in between there, so we've got a nice alternating knit, purl, knit, purl. We'll just cast on a few more here. For a purl, around to the back, over the front, down in between. For a knit, up and over, and around to the front. And you can see how you can start to get into a nice swooping kind of rhythm here. Now, since we started with a knit, we're going to end with a purl since we're doing 1 by 1 rib. And you can see that if I were to let that go, this is just going to get out of control. It's going to run right away. So, tail yarn is over my finger. I want to hold on to that one while I tension the working yarn with my left hand. Turn the work around. You want to make sure that all those little bumps stay towards the bottom. You're not getting twisted. Grab my other needle. And I just kind of hang on to this tail for a minute while I work the first couple of stitches. First one is a knit. Second stitch is a purl. You can see here that that next one is a knit. And we've got a bump here, so the next one's a purl. If anything does get twisted, you can see there that that just doesn't look right. You turn this back around until it looks like the stitch you're expecting. Knit and purl. Knit and purl. until you get to the end. And now I'll turn this so you can see. We have done our cast on in our first row of alternating 1 by 1 rib. At this point, you could continue working flat, or if you were doing a larger piece, you would join to work in the round. In the next section, I'll show you how to do the same cast on, but have your first stitch be a purl rather than a knit. Okay, to do an alternating cast on 1 by 1 rib beginning with a purl stitch, again I've drawn out a long tail about 4 times the width. But in this instance, instead of the tail yarn going over my finger, instead I'm going to bring it over my thumb, working yarn over my finger, and grab them just like you would. I'm going to go under the yarn, come up in between, twist towards me, and all the way around to back into position. And you can see that again, what looks like a little purl bump. So we want a knit stitch on the first one. We're going to bring the needle front, up in between, over the back, and around to the front again. And we've got a knit. For a purl, round to the back, up and over, down in between, and we've got our purl. As I'm working this, I'm keeping tension on the yarn with my left hand, and I'm keeping tension on these so that they're not sliding out of control with my finger and thumb. I'm kind of keeping my thumb along this edge of bumps here. If I were to cast on a lot of stitches, it's going to start to get twisted as it goes down the needle farther, but you just keep an eye on it once in a while and straighten it back out. Again, for a purl and for a knit. Purl and knit. Purl. And since we started with a purl, we're going to end with a knit. Again, if I were to let these yarns go, this is going to get very loose and sloppy here. So we tighten that back up. And remember that our tail yarn is over our thumb this time. So I want to keep control of that one while I tension my working yarn. And since this is going to be a purl to start, I'm going to bring that yarn to the front as I turn the work around. You can see here that the working yarn, the tail yarn, goes over the working yarn and gets caught between the yarn and the needle. Not as much so as it does with the knit, since you've got your yarn to the front. So I keep hold of that with my other hand as I begin to work. Oh, and I slid off there. A little hard to do this looking through a camera. Purl, knit. Again, I'll give you a good look here if I can get it to focus. And you can see purl bump is our next one. Knit stitch. And purl. Now you can see our first cast on one has a bit of an extra twist to it. That's just fine. Knit it just as you would any other. And now you can see we've done our cast on in our first row, and we are beginning with a purl stitch. Purl knit, purl knit. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much for watching.